Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome from the government side, Viceroy. And for the opposition side, Concierto. So on behalf of the adjudicators, we would like to congratulate both teams for making it this far. I know your parents are so proud of you right now. So do your best and good luck. Without further ado, let's start this debate, debating on the motion that this House believes that families of politicians should be required to make full financial disclosures. We would like to call upon the government side's Prime Minister to open this debate.
How can I make a QR? Can you just speak it here?
Yeah, you have to use the microphone.
Okay, it works. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, in status quo, we can usually listen about fraud or corruption of the politicians. It is not only a problem of the politician itself, but relatives such as families themselves too. We are trying to emphasize the family because it is common sense that relatives are the most reliable and most believable people that will never disclose the situation. So, in fact, many politicians conceal their property or corruption by their family's account. That is the exact reason why we should implement this policy. This House believes that the families of politicians should be required to make full financial disclosures. But before we go further in today's debates, I would like to define some key terms. Firstly, this House would be defined as South Korea. And next, families of politicians will be defined as 3 generations, such as grandparents and a politician itself, and son or daughters of them, who make income and who are living, because we cannot disclose that person's account. And next, required to will be defined as must, and full financial disclosures must be defined as income and outcome and all financial exchanges that they made. Then I would like to move on to our arguments. First point is a responsibility for political representation. And second is practicality. And third, Deputy Prime Minister will talk about promotion of positive messages, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start our first argument, responsibility for political representation. We, the government, believe, although maybe it is neither beneficial nor necessary for entire status quo, we believe, as the political representation, who is the mirrors of the society, they have responsibility for citizens that they are pure, that they are transparent, and that they are clean, ladies and gentlemen. It is the right of the citizens to know that, and responsibility of the politicians, who are the mirrors of the society. No thank you, ma'am, and no thank you, sir. What the citizens want is not the person itself, but the overall purity of him or her. The best way possible is to make sure the closest relatives, such as families, disclose and monitor their income and their financial disclosures. And to prove that they are responsible to the society, who are ruling the society by their responsibility. And if they are ordinary people, we would never require them like this such an action. But because they are the political responsibilities who rule the society and who is the representative of the citizens, we the government strongly believe that it is needed. No thank you, ma'am, and no thank you, sir. And concerning the status quo, seen many cases that they violated and even infringe upon right and committed fraud. And interesting to say it occurs among their relatives, such as families. Very many cases are like that. And they give money to relatives such as brother or sister or their families secretly. In these cases are very their vicious cycle is go around and go around and round. Not just because we don't believe them, not just because we ignore them, not just because we look down on them. Their status, they're a representative and responsible as a mirror of the society. We believe it is time to show up. Yes, sir.
There is team proposition who tries to gamble with the contingency and sacrifice the depth of their privacy, which is problematic in the first place.
it was very confusing POI. However, we believe that when the political representation was who is responsible to the society and who is the person who ruled the society that is representative to the citizens, then they have to be pure. They have to be transparent. However, citizens have no method to check this. They have right to know. And this policy was the best examples for achieving this goal. No, thank you, ma'am. And then to move on to our second argument, practicality, ladies and gentlemen. Disclose it after they get caught, it looks even dirtier. It is an action, even killing this family, when the politician caught by this fraud they disclose it after their crimes. Law should make clear-cut and improve its image of the politicians and its family itself too. And we can catch two birds with one stone, fluency and also cruelty. Ladies and gentlemen, we can catch fluency, that it will solve citizens' mistrust towards government in the status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the status quo, citizens cannot trust the government and also politicians because they think they are not transparent, they are not clean, they are just giving a fraud. However, giving them evidence that disclosing the financial accounts, we believe that it will solve the fluency. It will be fluency, and even when they're a crime, it will be fluent to have investigation, ladies and gentlemen. It will be very fluent in the future who committed crimes, who is politician. So we believe for fluency, it is practical to have this policy. And our next analysis is cruelty, ladies and gentlemen. Now, people are so aggressive when this kind of fraud happened. They investigate a lot about their politicians and also hack them. But when they disclose it, it is the evidence to check to the citizens that they can know they are transparent and they are clean. So immediately, it would also deter the crimes. Like when the politicians know that when they have a crimes, then their families will also disclose their financial accounts. Then they will deter the crimes and they will do not fraud, ladies and gentlemen. We believe it will release a cruelty of the citizens in the status quo and also deter the crimes. It can commit it in the future. For the future and for the long term, ladies and gentlemen, we believe this policy is needed. And that's why the government is back to propose. Thank you.
We would like to thank the Prime Minister. Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 27 seconds. And now to open the case for the opposition side, may we call upon the Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, may I start? Ladies and gentlemen, guilt by association is a problematic thing. And it is more problematic when they depend on contingency. And that's the reason why we go opposed for today's motion. And before we go on to our constructive cases, let me examine the logical flaws made by the team proposition. Now, their argument and their definition was about they're gonna actually disclose all the information of the 3 generations, ladies and gentlemen, of the politician's family. And we believe this is problematic because when they go extent of 3 generations, we believe that they're not much related to the politician and they are having a crime, they're having a punishment just because they are having a relationship with the politician which they don't choose in the first place and which is problematic. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me actually examine their first argument which was about responsibility. They say that politicians have responsibility. And we agree, politicians do have responsibility. But why are their siblings, their parents, or maybe their grandmothers or grandchildren are having the same responsibility? We believe that giving responsibility same to the people with the politician is problematic because it's politicians who shares and who have their own position and authority, not their parents. So giving a same responsibility is wrong idea in the first place. And their second argument was about the practicality. Yeah, we believe that this have quite a practicality in terms of human right infringement, and this is problematic in the first place. And what they've said is that they might improve the image of the politician. Maybe this might be so, but what then goes back to the family of the politicians? When you look at the fact, the family of the politicians are not actually in the spotlight of the media, even if they actually disclose their information about their financial standings, they will not get any image improved, and they will just have their privacy leaking out, which is problematic. So that's the reason why I have pulverized the case of the team proposition. Then let me explain our argument. We have basically some argument. Our argument number 1 is right to privacy and property. And our argument number 2 is disclosure should be left up for choice. And argument number 3 is simplify and misrepresent the fact. And argument number 4 is smearing campaigns. So, as a leader of opposition on today's debate, let me talk about the first 2 arguments, and the second speaker will talk about the last 2 arguments. So, having said that, let us directly go to argument number 1. But before we go on, do you have any POIs? No? Okay. Then, let us go to argument number 1, which is right to privacy and property. We believe that their policy is problematic, especially when the citizens who are having a relationship with a politician don't want their privacy to be open, ladies and gentlemen. And let me give you one of the biggest facts. People should not be punished for the things that they're not related. Unfortunately, the policy of the motion goes under the mentioned case because a person being regulated by a policy by this policy is actually having infringement of the privacy for the things that they haven't done. As a matter of fact, just as I mentioned, that the family are not intentionally born to be a politician's family, which is problematic. And in this argument, I have 3 levels of analysis. And analysis number 1 is responsibility on the regard of the politician. It's the politicians who have a direct responsibility because they have authority, they have power, they have position, and they have social responsibility regarding their social stance. So that's the reason why they are going to actually disclose their, financial standings. But let us look at the families of politicians. They don't have a specific authority that is exclusively given to the politicians. So that's the reason why they are differentiated. And when these different situations are there, why should a family have a same responsibility with a politician? Which is problematic and goes against the basics of human rights, of privacy. And then we have our category number 2, which assumes that the family of politicians did something wrong. Now, let me give you some fact about our constitution. South Korea's constitution clearly says that investigation is only allowed when there is 100% guaranteed wrongdoings. However, on their policy, ladies and gentlemen, we are not sure whether family have done wrongdoings or not. So we believe that this harms and goes against the constitution. Now, the problem of the policy is that one side, there is a possibility of family who have done the wrongdoings, but on the other hand, there is a possibility that family have done nothing wrong, and why should they be punished for doing nothing wrong? So we believe that the team proposition should have actually come up with more fairer ways. And then our analysis number 3 is that infringes human right, privacy, in detrimental way. Now, by the policy, privacy of the families of the politicians are severely damaged because financial standings of the individual means how they live, how they use their money, the track of their lives. And the track of their lives are suddenly disclosed one morning, and we believe this is problematic. For example, let's say that I go to gay bar because I am gay. Ladies and gentlemen, but gay itself is not a wrong thing. But when it is open, I don't like it because social standing and people don't see gay as a good thing. But although I have not done anything wrong, they're opening my information related to the gay, and I am punished for the sake of my family, which is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. And these sort of stressful examples actually go to the real world, which is problematic, and that's the reason why their case was unjustifiable in the first place. So that's the reason why there is first argument. And then let us go to our argument number 2, which is disclosure should be up for the choice. Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of fact, there are some politicians who want to actually disclose their information, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that it's only when they actually allow and they're actually agreeing to the disclosure, they should be disclosed. So it's better to make them choice between the privacy and the image. Ladies and gentlemen, when politicians do not disclose their image, then there will be having an image being harmed because people think that when they do not disclose their image, then they believe that public believe that they have done something wrong, right? So ladies and gentlemen, let the politician give a choice between their family and politicians give a chance and choice between the privacy and other venues like images, ladies and gentlemen. And when we look at the status quo, actually, the 3/4 of a politicians and their family are actually disclosing their information by their own intention. So, ladies and gentlemen, what government should do is not make a choice for the citizens, but rather make citizens choose between their images and the privacy, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that overall, their stance was problematic, and their stance is going against the human right whatsoever. That's the reason why we oppose for today's motion. Thank you.
We would like to thank the Leader of the Opposition. Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 31 seconds. And now, to continue the case for the government side, may we call upon the Deputy Prime Minister.
Responsibility of the politician, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly what the opposition is keep mentioning. That is not the family's responsibility, but only the politician's responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. But like our Prime Minister has said, where does this money that are being earned by the fraud from the politicians go to, ladies and gentlemen? These monies are used by the politicians' families, and politicians' families are engaged in these frauds, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we're saying that it is part of responsibility of not only the politicians, but the family of the politician, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine that person A has stolen something from the shop, and person B was watching whether someone is coming or not, ladies and gentlemen. Does person A is the only responsibility, and does the person A is the only person who gets punished, ladies and gentlemen? It is person A and person B's responsibility, the same equal responsibility, and they are also both punished, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we're saying that it is not only politicians' responsibility, but it is also families' responsibility. They're also, because these families are also in it, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you, sir. Also, they have given us giving the choice to politicians whether they're going to do and implement this policy, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that these politicians will actually follow and actually vote and actually say that they want to do this policy, ladies and gentlemen? We say no, ladies and gentlemen. They will not do anything about it, but they will try to hide, and they will just run away from getting caught, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we're saying that this policy is the only policy that is going to actually help and that is going to stop the fraud happening in the politician, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you, sir. Since I've disproved the reason why we should not do it as a voluntary, the opposition will need to prove the other alternatives that is actually better and that is more effective than today's policy, ladies and gentlemen. So moving on to our third argument, which is promotion of positive message. What is the one word that comes up to your mind when you actually think about Korean government and the politicians? It is probably the word fraud or mistrust towards these politicians or towards this government, ladies and gentlemen. When or why did these words become so familiar with these politicians when they have to be responsible and pure and representatives of our nation and of our society, ladies and gentlemen? It is simply unacceptable for our society, no, thank you, sir, to have politicians like that, ladies and gentlemen. And it is because these politicians have committed these fraud since 1948, when National Assembly or Congress has started. And since 21st century, every year, 10% of these politicians are caught by fraud, and 78% out of these frauds, families are involved in it, ladies and gentlemen. And because of these 78%, it shows highly how much families are involved. We're saying that we're going to include with this policy with the family, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that it is time to change these thoughts, no thank you, sir, from people thinking that these politicians are actually pure and actually does not commit any crime. First, we believe that if we impose this policy, the fraud will never happen. Because we can watch whether these politicians are not committing frauds or actually being pure, ladies and gentlemen. As a result, politicians will know that, no thank you, sir, that once they commit fraud, their income outcomes and exchanges will be shown to every individual in our society, letting it easily to be caught whenever they. No, thank you, sir. No, thank you, ma'am. When they commit fraud, ladies and gentlemen. Second, it will actually satisfy citizens. Citizens will have right to know how countries' taxes are being used, knowing how these politicians are not committing frauds, or how their money is going to be used, ladies and gentlemen. Letting these citizens to know and to actually think that these politicians are responsible and are pure and are actually a better representatives and a good representatives that can represent our nations in our international community. We believe that it is very important to actually impose this policy, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe that because these politicians because the citizens' thought against these politicians are changed, we believe that politicians can can do better work and become a responsible government towards our society and towards our citizens, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that actually proposing this policy to the family and to the politicians, we believe that it will bring promotion of positive message towards the citizens, towards the society, making citizens to think that their politicians are responsible and representative for their country. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. And to continue the case for the opposition side, may we call upon the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have such an immoral government who just assuming that all kind of relatives and the families of the politicians has responsibility of the corruptions regarding the politicians. And before I go on to my actual argument about the simplifying and the misrepresenting the concepts of this kind of policy and the side effects of this policy, I would like to rebut to some of the points made by the previous speaker. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we concede to the fact that politicians should show the transparent manner and they have the responsibility to show that their transparency toward these citizens. However, we want to emphasize the point that these family of the politicians are not in the position of politician, which they have certain responsibility to prove their transparency. We believe it's extremely immoral to infringe the basic human rights of the privacy of these people just because of the possibility that might exist. Second of all, they have talked about how this policy can increase the image of the politicians. However, ladies and gentlemen, we say that we need to take too much of the sacrifice, need to take the transparency and prove the transparency of the politicians. Conversely, we believe that this policy can even harm the image of the politicians, which will be further elaborated in my argument. Lastly, they have made this wonderful kind of assumption that in order to change the societal image of the politicians, we should make financial disclosure in order to not make the citizens to think that the politicians are such a fraud. However, we believe that there is no justification for the government to infringe the basic human rights of the privacy of politicians' family for the sake of image of the politicians. So, going on to my actual argument, we have two constructive arguments in total. First, how this can oversimplify and misrepresent the concept of this policy, and what kind of side effects and harms that this can bring to society. So, going on to my first argument about how this oversimplifies and misrepresents the concept of this policy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true that it seems very fishy and dubious if we disclose the whole transaction and the income of the outcome of the money, and if people start to wonder about the entire and the utter process of how the money was obtained or utilized, but this shouldn't be a justifiable cost for people's over-attention and inspection toward the politician's family. People are going to be suspicious about the politicians regardless of being aware, or rather they're making the rational decision. And if the citizens, once start to have an extreme doubt on the politicians, believe that this kind of suspect will never end until the extreme infringement of the human rights and individuals' privacy occurs. In the other words, even if the politicians had a justifiable cause and reason to exchange the money with other people, it will give no incentive to these distrustful citizens who do not want to believe in it, of the exchange and the transactions made by the politicians and other people. And before I go on, do you have any advice? Okay, so going on to my second argument, I would like to talk about the side effects and the harms that this policy can actually cause to the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, if we implement this policy, there will be an opportunity for the internet users to propagate and manipulate malicious rumors about these politicians. When family of the politicians actually discloses the whole process of their financial transaction, their everyday life is going to be a subject of the gossip and be manipulated by the citizens who want to make a gossip about these politicians.
Go on,
we
ma'am.
believe this kind of, wait ma'am, manipulated rumor is extremely problematic. Yes, ma'am.
Does the financial account is the whole thing from the family who are the families of the politicians?
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a strange government who's actually challenging their own definition because they have clarified in the first place that they were going to disclose all kinds of transaction and process of the outcome and income of the family. And we believe that this can lead to extreme infringement of the human rights and the privacy of the family. So continuing with my argument, we believe that this kind of manipulated rumor is extremely problematic and detrimental to society. First of all, because people don't deserve to be in these kind of human rights infringing gossips because a family member didn't choose to be, for example, the daughter of the politicians. It will be extremely unfair for the government to disclose all kinds of the private information just because of the reason that they are the family member of the politicians, which they did not even have a choice upon it. Therefore, even the small actions made by the families of the politicians, such as buying books or taking accounts in the bank, would be recognized by the citizens that under the constant scrutiny and gossip of the public. And we believe that this can be extreme human rights infringements upon the families of the politicians. Second of all, we believe that the image of the politicians would be unfairly distorted according to the actions of his or her family members. So his or her political image should not be damaged because of what other family members have done, because they're these separate entities and one's individual rights should never be infringed just because they have a close relationship with other family. So they have talked about how this policy can actually prove the transparency of the politicians and how this can show the citizens and be a clear evidence to the society that they're actually keeping a promise they have made with the citizens. However, ladies and gentlemen, so for example, as our leader of opposition has mentioned, for example, if I were a lesbian and I went to a lesbian bar, and even if this is not a wrong thing to do, if the society knows about what has happened in the transaction and the process between the financial disclosure of their family, since the conception of the lesbian is accepted in the minor way and the wrong way in this society, we believe that this is really detrimental and will be influential to the politicians' image severely. So let us go to conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, we have told you today that family members' rights of the politicians should never be infringed just for sake of the image or the society image of the politicians or to keep the politicians safe. I believe that this kind of policy can further lead to the simplifying and misrepresentation of the concept. Not only that, but also can bring a lot of side effects and harms that can be regulated by the government side. And for these reasons, we're very proud to oppose.
We would like to thank the Deputy Leader of the Opposition for her constructive speech. And now to continue the case for the government side, may we call upon the government whip.
Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition side, before coming here, we thought we have clarified thoroughly that we are not going to infringe upon the life of privacy, but we are going to infringe upon or account or any other transfer of the economy itself, because this kind of monies are from the taxes of the civilians, and this kind of representatives are actually ones who have to control this kind of things. And they have been arguing that because gay bars kind of examples, but that is too extreme. We are not saying that because who you are, you have to be infringed, but because what you did is something that should be infringed. That is what exactly this kind of policy is doing. doing. The fundamental question is remaining throughout this debate. Do you see our members of our society think that the representatives are transparent and also not full of fluency, or are they actually honest? But we have never seen in our status quo that the members have seen them. But that is why we are going to implement this kind of policy to make them sure that they're transparent and they're honest. And second of all,
Sir,
yes, ma'am.
we have already explained that how much of the sacrifice and the human rights infringement of the families of the politician need to be accepted in order to make the politician's image so transparent.
Okay, we agree on the fact that the privacy and a lot of has to be sacrificed. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of representatives are giving the countries the human right. They have to secure their own right. They have to show they're honest and they're protecting their rights and showing them that civilians will be kept throughout. That is what the policy will be doing. No, thank you, ma'am. Nothing wrong, nothing wrong. That's what the oppositions keep saying. Yes, we agree on the fact that the relationship are not doing anything. But even the politicians do wrong things, will they get punished? That is a fundamental question that remains. Because we thought they don't get punished, this is a last resort to know them they are clear or they are honest, ladies and gentlemen. So ladies and gentlemen, society devolves and devolves. Quite sure that this is a vicious cycle. And as a new system of political structure and social structure, democracy is achieved. Whole citizens vote for their representative to make up their represent, as the name stands. As the society technology developed, making connection fast as possible. When or action of a representative, whether or illegal or not, criticism exists. The problem starts here. The prejudices make representative congressmen be someone who always does illegal actions. This is a time where opposition and proposition differ. Proposition says that we have to do something to change the social prejudice, to show the transparent, and team proposition believes disclosure able to indicate how money can effectively show politicians as transparent and honest. What opposition is trying to say, let's watch the status quo distorted. And this is a vicious status quo. But to end this, we need to make this policy implement on the society. So what the opposition was primarily arguing about is that the privacy has to be kept. But ladies and gentlemen, as I stated in as this introduction, the representatives are the one who has to secure the privacy of the members of the society. When they actually could not do those kind of achievements, it is quite sure that the society wouldn't do. That is why the proposition keeps saying that by implementing the policy, that we can actually make the politician to be qualified. And that is what the opposition, the government keeps saying on. And second of all, disclosure. They have been saying that voluntary disclosure is occurring in our status quo, and this is a more kind of something that would efficient. But did it really occur? Did the representative choose to disclose their accounts? No, ladies and gentlemen. That is why the proposition has came up here to implement this kind of policy, to make sure that the representatives are qualified. Yes, sir.
If they don't disclose, then they'll get the same criticism from the public because there will be high skepticism, which is the same result in the first place.
But what we're saying is that because that is actually the exact what we are actually advocating. Because if they then don't disclose their accounts, then they will actually be more the citizen will be more cruel to them because you did not disclose. That is why we're actually making to sure that the politician will actually mandate their disclosure and actually provide the citizen quality to be prevented. No, thank you, ma'am or sir. And then third class that I found, simplify and the side effects. So yes, we argue on the fact that the sacrifice has begun, but because we have been arguing in the first place, because the representative of the country, they have to sacrifice some of their aspect to make sure that the country is running right. But what they're saying is that let's just look at them do illegal actions. But we are not saying that because we have to make sure a policy that cannot be circulated just like this, our status quo, because the representative does actually avoid this kinds of policy and do illegal actions. We need to actually show their evidence that these monies weren't actually used in the illegal action, embezzlement, or any other bribery. And that is why the opposition, the government, is keep advocating that we have to make sure they're clarified, and we have to make sure they are mandatory to show their evidence is adequate, ladies and gentlemen. So the government giving you the responsibility of the political representation and practicality of this kind of things, preventing the cruelty, and then third of all, giving a promotion of the positive message, we back to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Government Whip. Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And now I'd like to call upon the Opposition Whip.
Mr. Speaker, today we, the government opposition side, actually tries to tell you that if there is a two different entity, one entity shouldn't be responsible for others' decision. However, what the government side is actually saying today is they're going to actually sacrifice and violate the people's rights and freedom just because of uncertainty that they might have had a corruption. We believe that this is totally irresponsible government side, where they are proving and making a justification that it is okay to actually convict people because of uncertainty. Now, as the government whip, opposition whip, I have three clashes in total. First is that is this justifiable? Second is that do we have to force it? Third is the harms and benefits of this policy. And before I go on, I would like to propose one rebuttal. Like, they said that they are only going to disclose the amount of money, but first of all, they have clearly stated in their Prime Minister's speech they are going to talk about the income and outcome process. And second of all, we say that's more problematic, because how is just looking at the amount of money is suddenly going to prove that they had suddenly committed the corruption, which we say is very ineffective. Moving on to my first clash about is this justifiable policy? Now, they actually said that they actually talked about politician responsibility and societal duty and blah blah blah. Mr. Speaker, we believe that first of all, we concede to the fact that politicians do have this kind of responsibility, and that's why because they choose to be the politicians in the first place. That's why they disclose the transaction of their money right now with the current status quo. However, Mr. Speaker, in the case of the families of the politician, we believe that's different, because why actually have to be the families? Because just because they have the relationship of a family doesn't mean they are able to be responsible to one family's other crimes. For example, in the very start of the Republic of Korea, the cousin of some people can be killed just because they were the family of them was a communist. However, Mr. Speaker, right now as a democratic country, we don't allow other families to be responsible just for others being communist, just for others have some kinds of uncertainty that they have this kinds of corruption, or if they have some kind of obligation. Therefore, we believe that their point does not stand, and also, we believe that as I mentioned in my introduction, different entities shouldn't be responsible for one another's decision. And what they're saying is that just because one people choose to be the politician in the first place, they're going to sacrifice the other families too for these kinds of disclosure and infringement of the rights. We say in this clashes, Mr. Speaker, the right to privacy and property is the essential part of the freedom in our society. Therefore, why are they just assuming people that they did something wrong? Maybe the percentage may be high that they have done corruption, but Mr. Speaker, we believe the percentage is never the thing that we should actually judge people to actually disclose the amount of money or infringe the people's rights. Therefore, we believe that they're sacrificing people under uncertainty, which is not the rational government should actually do. Moving on to my second clash about do we have to force it, and before going, yes.
Yeah, you are talking about the percentage, but isn't that why, because there is a little possibility, we have to make sure that they are clean?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, we're going to to prove in these clashes that we are they're going to disclose it anyway without infringing the rights. Second of all, we're saying that we are never going to say the percentage is enough. They said like 10% is always caught for the fraud, then they're actually sacrificing 90% of people just for the percentage that 10% might have some kind of a possibility to have a corruption. Moving on to my second clash about why do you have to force it. Now they said that it is going to improve the image of politicians. First of all, we're saying that the image of other persons should not hinder the other person's image as well. For example, if one family donated a huge amount of money and it was the politician of some people, then the politician's image will also be very improved, which we say is not fine because it's not the decision that they had made. And in the reversely, if family does something wrong and irrational, then also the image of the politician of the family is actually going to be deteriorated, which we say is also problematic because of the reasons I explained. Now we say in this clashes that without infringing the rights, we are able to solve this problem because we can make we can give them the freedom of choice, but they are still going to choose 75% of the politicians actually choose to disclose because they're taking a risk that when they do not disclose, it might be more suspicious for people that why are they actually disclosing this kind of amount of money. Moving on to my third clash about the harms and benefits. Now they say that it is going to give a positive image of the politicians. Mr. Speaker, we believe that there's no justification for government to infringe privacy, right to property, just because politicians' family, for the sake of image of politicians, Mr. Speaker. We believe that that's a total nonsense of the government team. We say in this clashes, Mr. Speaker, that we are the netizens, the internet users, is actually going to having very infringement of the rights about gossiping, Mr. Speaker. We're saying that we might, the ordinary people might just go to the cafe and buy the Evian, but actually when we discuss these kinds of transactions of the politicians, just because they are the family of the politicians, they're going to, if they just go to the Evian, just go to the cafe and buy the Evian, the people, ordinary people, is going to accuse them for having very extravagant kind of lives just because they are the family of the politicians. We believe that these kinds of gossips are not what they deserve just because they are the family of the politicians. Therefore, we believe that this directly goes to the infringement of rights, and it is going to further aggravate the situation of what we are trying to say. Therefore, we are saying that their harms actually is not going to be principally right, and it's not going to be dealt in the very first place. And second of all, we're saying that our harms and benefits is very important, and hence we believe that we should beg you to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Opposition Whip. Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 8 seconds. And that ends the constructive part of this debate. And now we would like to hear the final words from each team. Let's start with the opposition reply speaker.
Okay, quote from the government whip. Society evolves and evolves. Yes, but unfortunately in a negative way on the side of proposition. And we believe that this is problematic. Ladies and gentlemen, and I want to clarify one thing. In account, when there is disclosed income and outcome, there appears your spending, your whole, how, where, what have you spending on the account. If you're not sure, go home and find out for Uri or Gungmin bank account or other bank account, ladies and gentlemen. And in today's debate, there are two simple questions. Question number one, is it justifiable? Question number two, will it actually make a good, fair society and politics? Now, first of all, is it justifiable? The team proposition said the responsibility of the politicians exists. Yes, we agree. This sort of responsibility exists. Why not? But why are they giving this responsibility to the actors who are not related for the problem, who are not having a different ground, different responsibility? We believe this is problematic. And that's the reason why we, the team opposition, have spent so much of time saying that people, the family and the politicians family and politicians itself have a different position, different authority, leading to different responsibility. And giving them same obligation is wrong. And also, we've said that privacy is a concept. And under their policy, this is blown away because their bank account or whatever is disclosed to a lot of citizens around Korea, in Korea. And we believe that this is definite human right infringement. And also, we have told you that we're not sure whether the family of the politician have done the wrongdoing or not in the first place, and they say that they want to make things sure. They claim that they want to have a fair society. And so much of a fair society when they go against the Constitution of Korea, isn't it? So, ladies and gentlemen, what government should have done is any analysis which is needed in order to win today's debate. And then there's question number 2, which is just society. Team proposition says that maybe disclosing the information will make a fair society because politicians might get some sort of a good image. Yes, maybe that might be true, but who are the sacrificing actors? It's not politicians, it's the family of the politicians. And family of the politician, do they get clear image? No, because I've explained to you that they are not in the spotlight of the media. So it's only politicians who are actually using and misusing the, the vulnerability of a family, which is problematic. And we say that there's actually a check and balance system in the society because when we give the choice to the politicians, we have explained to you that they might not disclose, but in that case, then their image goes down, and the citizens will actually come up with a criticism. And we believe that this is actually the same with when there is a actually openly corrupted politicians. We believe that the actor and the outcome is the same. So if politicians actually see the privacy as so much important thing, then let them have it that way, because they will be having some sort of outcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the conclusion. Maybe the team proposition is so young that they can understand our analogy about the gays and lesbians, but let me give you some simple facts. Say that I'm a son of a representative, and there's a cat of mine which printed a lot of money out from the Venus, which is laundry company, and 48 million people of Korea sees it. What should I feel? Do you think this society is right? If this sort of society is right, then have it that way. But if you think that this is wrong, then we should oppose for the today's motion, and that's the reason why I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Opposition reply speakers. Speaker spoke for 3 minutes and 34 seconds. And we'd like to thank the opposition bench. And now, to close the debate for the government side, may we call upon the government reply speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, now the opposition side keep emphasizing about the privacy of the politician and itself and also their family. However, we the government strongly believe that their privacy and their family's privacy could be sacrificed because they are the responsible who should be the best and who should be the models of the citizens who rule the society, and citizens have right to know, and we should satisfy the citizens' right, ladies and gentlemen. And they firstly said about the right of privacy, and they emphasizing now. They also said politician itself is only responsible, not the families. However, I already mentioned in the previous speech that in most of their crimes, families are the most relevant people and most reliable and most believable people that will not disclose this kind of situation. So they conceal it in their family's account. That's the exact reason why we are proposing this motion, to deter the crimes from the family's account and from the crimes that the politicians gave their having corruption or fraud in their family's account. And that's why exact reason why we are proposing this motion, and that's why we believe the family's privacy can be sometimes sacrificed, ladies and gentlemen. And they secondly said about make people to gossip of the public entire life. However, we didn't mean this policy it is not whole and not as entire of the life of the families and politician itself. But this policy is just about the economic part, just about money, ladies and gentlemen. Money is not whole life of the people. So that's why we, the government, believe that in this part, they have responsibility to disclose it, even though it is politician itself or it's their families themselves, ladies and gentlemen. And they secondly said about the keep using examples of gay and lesbian. However, we believe it is too extreme thought about the opposition side, and this is not related to this motion, but that is considering about the economic parts of the politician and itself, it is families. And they said about the distortion will keep continue. However, in the status quo, people's prejudice towards politicians is becoming harder and harder. They believe they are not transparent, they are dirtier. However, they keep emphasizing the distortion and privacy. And we, the government, strongly believe to deter the crimes and also change the status quo, the prejudice of the people, we believe this policy is very needed. Then I'd like to build up our three arguments. Our first argument was about the responsibility for political representation. I already mentioned, even though it is families, they are relative and related to the politician who had a crime or who had a fraud, and that's the exact reason why we believe the families and politicians' right sometimes can be sacrificed for the citizens' right, and to satisfy the citizens' right, we believe it is needed. And our second argument was about the practicality. We already mentioned about the fluence in cruelty of that, and in the status quo, people are having a very large and huge amount of cruelty towards politicians and its families too. And we believe this policy will solve this problem and also protect the politicians and its family either. And our third argument was about the promotion of positive messages. It will not giving any positive messages, but also it will have deterrence to the crime in the future, for in the long term, ladies and gentlemen. We, the government, strongly believe that this policy is very needed and it is necessary, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we back to propose. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Government Reply Speaker. And we would like to thank the entire government bench. And at this point, we would like to thank all the debaters for giving us a very interesting debate. On behalf of the 9 panel adjudicators, we would like to thank you and congratulate you for this success. Thank you very much.